Hey, look, man, we're here with another cockpit conversation. Today, I'm super excited. I get to hang out with my best friend since we were both 17 years old. Oh my God, that makes me feel hella old right now.
Oh,
Um,
hella old. I
man,
was 30
look,
years,
man,
I
that
was
was
30 years.
that was a long time ago. So I'm super excited to be able to hang out with you here today, man. Rashad, thanks for being on with me, man, to have this cockpit conversation. Here's the beauty, man. The cockpit conversation really it stems from this idea that when we're sitting in the cockpit flying airplanes across the Atlantic Ocean, circling around in the middle of Iraq or wherever, we're always having these conversations. And because we got time to just hang out, we get time to just get to know each other. We get time to talk about different topics and we get time to go deeper and explore the world, explore topics that are happening in present day, and to also get to know each other a little bit better, man. So, welcome. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what's on your mind today, man.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for bringing me into the cockpit with you. I've never actually flown a plane across the Atlantic. And so I feel like this is a really good opportunity for me to get the same feeling of what it's like to sit next to you on that journey. My name is Rashad Howard. I'm an evolving human, a soul that's looking to just continuously live in alignment. There's all the accolades and all the things that I used to identify with as that's who I am. And I'm learning to essentially let that stuff go. I'm not really attached to them, just attached to being the best version of myself, man. And so I
Man,
do some entrepreneurial things and do some artistic things and I do some fun things, and it's all part of being me.
you
That's
know,
me.
I love that. I love how you talked about letting some of these things go, right? Letting these
Yeah.
attachments and titles go. I was this morning as I was kind of getting my day going, I was thinking about getting back into finding my mojo. And it's
Mm.
funny, man. It's like perhaps I never lost it. And it's funny because I made this video, and the video that I made, I was encouraging and telling people to stop worrying about what other people are saying about you. I was saying
Mm.
stop worrying about what people think about you and stop creating this narrative, right? So we create this narrative in our mind, and the narrative that we're creating is this idea of, well, I wonder what he's thinking about me, and so I'm thinking about what he's thinking about me, and so because in the absence of information, we create a story. I've now created a story about what I think about you thinking about me, and you ain't even worried about me. And my
Bruh.
mojo, I've never lost it.
Yeah. So, there's you said a lot in that just one little cycle, that moment, you said a lot. I'm gonna pivot to something and then come back to the concept of how you get your confidence back because I think it's appropriate. It mixes well, meshes well with this. We are our imaginations, like by default as human beings, we are all granted um these very vivid and active imaginations, and so we all use them. It's just sometimes, what are we using our imagination for? Like, it takes a great imagination to envision something amazing and to create a life for yourself that is beyond, what you're experiencing today. All the things that you ever wanted or could have dreamed of, that's your imagination. But most of us, and I'm saying us because myself included, we spend more time using our imagination to imagine terrible things for ourselves,
Oh, come
right?
on, bro.
It's just like, what are we imagining? And so, like, what you just said, you were just like, think about the amount of time you have to spend using your talented brain, your vivid imagination to create scenarios where some imaginary person or people, whoever they are thinking negatively about you and that it needs to matter to your real self today.
Ah, bruh, I love that. And again,
Yeah.
man, this is beautiful because it's how are we using this? How are we using the most powerful tool we've ever been given? It was given to us at birth, and it's
Yeah.
our imagination, right? Our ability to create, our
Yeah.
ability to imagine a world, our ability to make the impossible possible. But we sitting here utilizing this thing to be worried about what you think about me. Bruh, stop.
Yep.
Right? And
Yep.
it's so funny when I told you in a conversation earlier about finding my mojo, and you asked me a question like, bro, did you ever lose it? And it's like, no, I did it.
It's been there. It was with you when you were born. It was with you before you were born. And it'll be with you even when you're not here. You always have the mojo. It's just, we have lived a life where we've begun to either believe the programming around us or we convince ourselves that the things that are actually real aren't real, right? The things that are actually real, our mojo, our excitement, our talent, our confidence, our innate abilities, the things that we just bring to the table, just naturally, just being ourselves, our true self, that's always here. And it takes actually work and lost in your ego and lost in your own mentality. And listen, I'm speaking from experience. It takes being in that place to lose it. You don't really lose it. It's just you go somewhere else and it takes you time to come back home to yourself. Right. And there's just a moment, take the moment to come back home. When you come back home, you realize, oh, I'm still here and it's always been here. It's never gone anywhere.
Yeah, man, I love that idea of like you never lost it. But I also love what you kind of started with, the idea of I'm going to disconnect myself from these titles. I'm going to disconnect myself from these identities. And when I think about that, as you know, man, since we graduated college, I've been an Air Force pilot. And it would have been very easy to get wrapped up in this identity of being a pilot. And sometimes I will definitely take liberties knowing that I have that privilege of being in a privileged group within a certain sector. But what I chose to consciously do, as well as based on the people that I surrounded myself with, was I never allowed myself to fully allow that identity of being a pilot to be my identity, right? So when it's time to actually get rid of that or offload that identity, it's not problematic for me as it is for some people, because those titles become how they identify themselves to the world. And I would just love to kind of get your perspective on what you meant when you said, hey, man, I've disassociated myself from these things.
Mm. There's a lot there because it has not been an easy road.
No.
Um, but I'll give the quick, broad answer first, and that is you use the word identity, and that's the key word. I think we spend a lot of time in our lives. I had spent a lot of time in my life essentially imagining myself as this role that I was playing in the world. And that role was essentially um, the validation of that person, the credibility of that person had to be externally validated. And the reason that that I was continuously lost in that loop, where I would sort of constantly be looking outside of myself for validation, is because I was attached to how those titles made me feel, how people treated me based on those titles. And so it got to a point where I was living my life so focused on maintaining the experience of those titles that I quit actually experiencing life. I quit actually living as myself. And I didn't even really, we just mentioned a point about coming home. Um, I had not spent enough time coming home to myself, engage with the true who Rashad really is. And it's not the human being who achieves and does stuff and lives his life chasing after, business success, lots of money, and lots of other things I probably should not have been chasing. And so, throughout life, um, the reason that we continue to engage in experience so many different sufferings, different setbacks, a lot of these things come from just our attachment to things that are outside of ourselves. And I've just decided that I like living in a space where I have eternal and constant peace of mind and constant access to these bright ideas that continue to flow through me and the option to live out my life the way that I truly can experience it as an aligned individual. And in order to do that, it just took the process of learning how to let go of my attachment to external validations altogether, external desires, external things. And so, even as when you ask the question, like tell people about yourself, tell them your story, I feel like the story has to be about that now. The true freedom and liberation that comes from no longer living your life for the glory or external validation of other human beings, and learning to attach to yourself.
Bruh, man, like, uh, it's so funny. I think we had an idea of where we wanted to go, and we
Yeah,
literally detached from that the moment we started recording, and I think that's
yeah,
beautiful, right? And again, this is in alignment with this idea of this cockpit conversation. There's no agenda, right? We're just gonna hang out and we're gonna have fun in the conversation, and and we get to ping on the different words. We get to dial into things that we say that grab each other's attention, and I love that. And so as you were
yeah,
talking, one of the things we were talking about initially was how to kind of pause and take a moment to put things in order. And I think that gets into sometimes actually that attachment slash detachment, because a lot of times we want to show up. And when we show up, what we're trying to do is we're trying to show up as that person who's got it all figured out. We're
mm,
trying to show up as that person who is perfect. We're trying to show up like I personally was like, well, what do I put on today? Do I wear this sweatshirt? Do I wear this hat? Well, I've worn this on video before. Okay, am I gonna wear this every time? Am I gonna only wear this? Or like, do I want to wear somebody else's brand? Like, man, all of this stuff goes through my head, right? And then when you just say, look, man, just show up, right? Because a lot of us, number one, we're afraid to show up because we're afraid to be judged. Number two, we're
right,
afraid to show up because we're afraid that we won't be perfect and we won't have it figured out. And we're trying to be seen in a certain light, and we're afraid of, well, what if they really see me? And I think that sometimes, actually, most of the times, when people get to really see us, right? Like, there's nothing adulterated about our cameras right now. There's nothing adulterated about who we are. Like, we just show up. And I think sometimes, if not most of the time, when we do that, what we allow people to do is we allow people to see us in our authentic selves. And I think that dials into the word that you said earlier that got me excited, which was liberation. And so I
yeah,
get to sit here and feel liberated in this conversation with you.
yeah. Well, that I think that's you hit the nail on the head on multiple aspects of that. Like everything that you said is resonating. I think in doing this as well as showing up as your authentic self, people can sense it, and it also gives them permission to be that for themselves. And I think the greatest impact we can have on others is essentially to operate in the world as our unique and authentic selves, because then it essentially releases everyone else to do the same. And that's, to me, the perfect way to sort of raise the consciousness and create an impact. I used to think impacting others was a driver for me, when in fact I was really just looking for validation in some cases. I used to think that that was what was important to me, and it was interesting how when I let that go, when I let like that entire process go and just focused on really understanding who I was, what it means to describe, like, well, who's the true self? Who's the person that observes Rashad as he's living his life, right? Who is that? Um, just doing that allowed me to sort of live in such a way where it could be an impact to other people. And it's like there's this concept called Wu Wei in Taoism. They use it in Buddhism as well, where they talk about effortless action. And that's just kind of the state that I want to, trying to achieve at all times is, if I know who I am and I'm living in my authentic space, then I'm effortlessly taking action and making things happen around me that are beneficial and useful and serving, um, to support and help and grow and push me forward. And whatever impact that has on the rest of the world, that's the authentic impact that I was meant to have, versus trying to force my way into making an impact so that I can get the validation or accolades of doing so. I think I said a mouthful. That's a lot, but
Bruh,
that's that.
you said a lot, but I think there's a lot to be gained from this conversation. Like, literally, I want to go back and look at the notes from this conversation and just say, how many other conversations do we get to have, right?
Oh, forever. This goes on for
Yeah,
this rabbit hole goes deep, brother.
right. which I love, man. And I think, what's interesting, right, is that you and I have both experienced extreme highs. We've experienced a lot of success in our lives. By anybody's account and measurement, we're pretty damn successful, right? Like
Yeah.
we have traveled the world. The cool thing, man, is that we've traveled the world together. We've traveled the world with
Mhm.
our families, our children together. But we've also experienced loss together. We've also helped each other get through those very deep valleys, right? Where it was just as simple as, man, I just need you to show up, or man, I just need you to answer a phone call, right?
Yeah.
And I think the thing that I want to kind of go to, man, is that, a lot of people, when they look at you and I, they look at us and they assume that we have it all figured out. They assume, like, that's the narrative and the story that they're creating, right? In the absence of information, people create a story. And the story that they're creating about you and I is that you and I have it all figured out, right? We've got the perfect family life. We've got the perfect business success. We're amazing entrepreneurs, blah, 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 right? But what they don't see is they don't see those moments where we struggle. They don't see where we enter into those valleys, those dark places where we have to rely and lean on each other as part of that inner circle, that top five that we surround ourselves with. They don't see any of that. And I would love to kind of, if you were to give advice to either your younger self or perhaps the young folks that are watching us. And when I say young, it's relative to us, right? We're in our mid 40s, but there are people that are looking at us. They're aspiring to be like you and I. They're aspiring to attain the level of success that we've attained. And I would love for you to just talk about the fact that we don't have this all figured out. We don't know what we're doing at times, and we're just having fun on this journey, and we fail and we just keep getting back up. We pick each other up. We push each other and we pull each other along this journey.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I would start that conversation because you alluded to what would you tell your younger self? And I think the thing that has come to me recently, I was actually thinking about it during my walk today. Thing that came to me recently is the I think an important thing I would say to myself younger is that you don't really need to spend a whole lot of time searching for meaning in life because I'm gonna give you the answer right now. Like it's a journey to learn. Like it's a
Say, well,
long
say,
class.
say, say, say that again. The meaning to life is what?
It's learning. It's continuing to grow and learn and change. Like the point of life is to live it, and living is learning. Um, the greatest teachers in the world patiently work with you until you've learned the particular lesson, right? And they'll come at you with different modalities for you to learn from it, right? They'll teach if you're more visual, they'll use visual cues. If you need lecture, if you like music, they'll try to tap into your senses in whatever way possible to help you to learn something. Those are the great teachers, and they're patient and they take their time because the most important thing about the teaching profession for them is that the students who are their students, they learn and they understand the concepts. And to me, life is the greatest teacher, right? And the point of us is to be students of that. And so I would tell my younger self, like, the whole point is for you to learn things, which means you don't know all the things, and you're going to experience challenges and failures, and that's the point. The point is for you to have to learn how to overcome a thing. There are different religious modalities where people sort of attribute things to life, and the Buddhists and Hindu they sort of look at it as we have karma that we're trying to break, and we live multiple lives, and we come back, and we have to sort of outlive that karma or deal with what they call samsara, which is like the constant cycle of suffering, and then you go through life attempting to learn the next thing that you need to learn to be better in the next cycle. And that's one way to look at it. I just say at the end of the day, life in and of itself it's a really good class. And the entire point is just to be in school for as long as possible, learning as much as possible. And so I don't know if that doubles back and answers this specific question. In fact, I don't remember it. I keyed in on I tell my younger self. Um,
No,
but
that that's
what was the yeah, where were you going with that?
no, that was beautiful, man. I mean, because that's important, right? Like, how do you define the meaning of life? We all get to define it differently. You know what I'm saying? And the actual question was more in alignment with like the idea that we don't have it all figured out. We don't have it,
Ah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, we're not perfect. People look at us and they go, man, you guys, your life must be perfect. You must have everything that you want. You must always be happy and excited. And it's like, no, man, we're human. We're on this human journey together, just like you are. You know what I'm saying?
yep,
Like, we
every single one.
struggle. We struggle just like the next person, right? We have our vulnerable moments. We have our moments where, where we feel like we don't know what's the next step. We have our moments where we're wondering if it's all going to come crashing down just like
Mm,
everyone else because we're experiencing this thing called humanity. We're experiencing this human experience just like the next person. And again, a lot of people when they see us in their minds, the narrative that they've created is that Rashad and Jason and the people that they surround themselves with, they've got it all figured out. When in the reality, we don't. We're going to make mistakes. We made mistakes this morning. We made mistakes yesterday. We're going to make mistakes tomorrow. The difference is that when we make our mistakes, we don't just fall down and quit and roll over and give up. We get back up and we figure out how to learn from that mistake. We figure out how to grow from that lesson. We don't even look at it as a mistake anymore at the level that we're operating at. We look at it as a lesson. And then every time I learn a lesson, that means I learned on this journey. Every time something happens, I am learning and I am getting better and I am growing and I am evolving. As you said, the meaning of life being to learn constantly and consistently. And the reality exists is that no, we don't have this thing all figured out like people think we do.
no, man, and you touched on a lot there. I think one of the things I would say is it's not even just that there are moments when we don't have it figured out. Like it's not like there are moments in season. Like I think there's got to be an appreciation for the fact that like that's actually all the time, right?
Yes.
There's moments when it looks like we got it figured out, and those are the moments we choose to post on social media and all of those things. But the rest of life leading up to the post and immediately after it is
Yeah.
how do we figure this stuff out? Like it's that it's that constant, you know, you know, and by the way, you wouldn't need a lesson if you already knew the answer. Like that's the
Oh.
whole point of learning.
Hold up. Say that again.
So
You wouldn't need a
wouldn't
lesson if you
need
already
the
knew.
lesson if you already knew the answer.
Come
And
on, bro.
so this notion that each day there's something new to learn and figure out, and to me that's proof of life, right? If life is a long class where we're learning things on a regular basis, the discomfort, the need for growth, the moments of not having it together, that's proof of life. And it doesn't mean that life always has to be about suffering and struggle or what have you. In fact, I think the opposite is true. I've let go of the need to feel like I'm struggling all the time because at the end of the day, we're going to experience growth each day, and that's going to come with challenges. And, we're all capable as humans. We've all been gifted the ability to address and face those challenges and grow. To your point about things can knock you down, but you just get back up, you don't quit, and you keep moving. That's actually a very human thing. To survive, to continue forward is very human. And I think that it's a beautiful thing. It's a very liberating thing to get out of constant survival mode, to begin to rewire your brain and train your brain to such that you're not constantly just seeing yourself as just overcoming the basic needs necessary to survive, but I'm just taking this lesson today and it's on this never-ending pathway of growth, which allows me to just continue to connect deeper and deeper to my true self. And that's the beauty. Like it makes waking up exciting. And by the way, I don't feel excited every day, right? But
Yes.
when I'm in my right mind, I'm able to bring reality back and remember this is one long class. This is what it's supposed to feel like. It's
Wow.
proof of life, and life is beautiful.
Bruh. Proof of life. Proof
Yeah.
of life. I love it, man. Um, as you were talking, I was really reminded of the podcast that you used to have, and I loved the way the podcast was titled, the catchphrase, and it was the podcast for people that don't have their shit together. Like,
Winging
man, winging it,
it.
like,
We
bro,
paused it
like
for a minute.
because again, proof of life. We're here every day. I don't wake up feeling like let's go. Right? There are days where I post stuff and I'm telling everybody else let's go because I'm trying to get my motivation and energy up to be like Jason, let's go, bruh. Get up. Like
Yeah.
don't like it, the sun's up. Let's go. Right? Or the sun will be up eventually. Whatever. But none of us have our shit together completely. We're all learning, man.
In those moments when you're doing that, I think I'm glad you said it that way. Because you talked about sometimes you're doing that just to pump yourself up. I think it's just like I talk about, I said earlier about, it's important that people see and experience that we're not perfect, right? Because it's an example. Also, the ability to overcome staying in those ruts, like you give that example every day, and that's you're out there, you're saying motivational positive things, and that's really to hype yourself up. Well, that's the example, right? When things get tough, and you need to like find find anything that you can do, use a tool that can help you recover yourself, get back to your confidence, get your mojo back. Those are the things you do, is you actually step out and speak in faith the things that you want to be experiencing, the things that you expect to have. And oftentimes you won't have anything that you don't give. And so giving positive energy, giving positive affirmations, be it to yourself or to others, those things serve as the example of how you have a positive mental attitude, enthusiasm about what you're doing, the mojo, the excitement about the dream, the ability to like feel like, man, I could conquer the world. Everything that's about to come out of my mouth is about to be gold. You speak to thousands of people every week. The ability to walk on that stage with confidence. It's the same thing. It's like that's part of the routine. It's almost as if posting on Instagram isn't really about flexing for other people. It's part of a routine that you have to go through to help yourself keep the confidence, bro. That's real.
Bruh, yes. I think, you hit on something, right? A lot of people, they're about the flex, right? Like I have this one particular contact. He's a friend slash vendor, and I'll tell him something. He's like, "Oh, dude, that's such a flex," and I'm like, "Bro, I'm not out here actually flexing on people. I'm not trying to flex on nobody. Like I'm
Yeah,
actually living my life. My life is not about a flex." Right, like
yeah,
literally it's this is my life. Like you and I, we've laughed about this where I'm traveling somewhere around the world, or I'm actually doing something with my family, or maybe you and I are actually somewhere doing something, and I post, and it's literally
yeah,
me adding positivity into the world because I believe that my presence is my activism, and I help to impact and change people for the better, to leave this world better. But other people, they're like, oh, you out here flexing. Now, I have since given up the idea. I don't care what people think about me, clearly, in that
yeah,
sense. I'm not worried about it. But to the point of what you said, man, that this isn't a flex. This is our life. And we're living our life to the fullest, and we're enjoying this journey of this human experience, and we're releasing ourselves, as we kind of alluded to earlier in the conversation, we're releasing ourselves from being tied to these titles, from being obligated to these identities that people try to attach to us, and we're just having fun, enjoying life.
you know what? I'm gonna say it differently. I've been doing an exercise with myself where I take things that I take, especially with words that trigger me in different ways, and I try to reframe them and lean into them. So let's talk about the word flex for a moment, right? In order to strengthen a muscle, what do you got to do with the muscle?
Oh, come on, bro.
Flex the muscle, right?
Yes.
And so, um, we all tell ourselves stories in order to live, and in some ways, as we're putting out the positive experiences that we have in life, it's because that's the memory. We're flexing our muscle for
Mm.
remembering positive things about
Wow.
ourselves. Right?
Wow.
And so like it's important that we do because this is part of our memory, right? To my point about sometimes the posting isn't really about everyone else, but it's to strengthen your own confidence and to strengthen your memory of I have great experiences and good times. Life is actually beautiful for me. I'm blessed. I have the capacity to fly all over the world and experience great food, great people, great experiences, new air, new languages, new things like, and that helps me to grow and change as an individual. I become better through that process. And what do you have to do in order to continue to get stronger and recognizing those blessings? You got to flex that muscle. And so now when you're posting, it's a flex of that muscle so that you can keep your mojo to remember that you're staying present with who you are and that your mojo is always there. Who you are never changes. So you are your mojo. So that's
Bruh.
it. Like that to me. So like that's the reframe for that. And so yeah, keep flexing. So and so now if someone does say, yeah, you're just flexing, absolutely, bro. Yo, I
Bruh.
gotta keep my muscles like my memory muscles strong and my
Mm.
my 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 gratefulness, my gratitude muscle needs to stay strong. So I need to flex my gratitude muscle for all of these amazing experiences and put them out as a reminder to me and share it with the world. That's how it goes.
Bruh. I love it, man.
Yeah, man.
This has been amazing. I know that we could go on and on for a long time, man.
Yes.
I like literally
Shut it down.
this
Hey,
is
this was a great trip across the Atlantic, brother.
yes,
Where do we
this is
land? Do
what
we land in
bruh,
Paris?
Paris all day. We look, we going to see something beautiful in Paris, walk the Eiffel Tower, get our steps in, enjoy some great food, some great wine, enjoy and being pretty people critics, man. Again, this is what Cockpit Conversations is all about, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, and thank you for
Yeah.
your lifetime of friendship, man.
One
Any parting
before we
thoughts?
go, one more
Yeah,
thing. One more before we go, one more thing. I have a question, and I think, and maybe both of us can answer the question.
I'm listening.
I think it's apropos to what we're doing. What, and it could be small, it could be large. What are you doing right now that has you a little bit uncomfortable,
Mm.
and you know on the other side of it is it's growth. And so in what area are you attempting growth or what area are you experiencing discomfort?
Man, for me, there's quite a bit right now. This year, like
Mm,
last year, was a very successful year. It was successful in terms of number of things that I did as far as speaking events. It was very successful in terms of financially, and it was just an all around really good year. And then this year, I came out of the gates thinking it was going to be very similar, and it's actually shaping up to be totally different. And what I envision in that happening is that I've basically hit this like plateau, but some people they get stuck on a plateau, right? And then of course I think about this idea of what got you here won't get you there. And so for me,
mm,
the challenge, the things that I'm working on is re-envisioning my business and how I do it and how I execute it. Just yesterday I had the realization of like, wait a minute, you've been doing you started doing things that everybody else was doing. Why did you do that, Jason? And while it seemed to
mm,
work for this period of time, I
man.
actually I actually had to tell myself yes, literally yesterday, I had to tell myself, stop. You've been zigging with everybody else zigging. Your mission and your job is when they zig, you need to zag. And when they zag, you need to zig. And I lost myself in this particular space in my business, right? So I'm having to go back and look at that. And then more specifically, it is the investments that I'm having to make. They're significant investments. Like I'm leveraged on certain pieces of my business. And now I'm having to look and go, you have to double down. You got to add more fuel to the fire. You got to add more water to the seeds, to the soil. If you want them to germinate, you want them to grow. And that's hard. That's stretching me because it's this,
Yeah.
man, what if I take all of this money and what if I invest all of this money and it doesn't work? And then it's the writing of the book. Like before we jumped on this conversation, I was looking at part of the manuscript that's stretching me. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm working with a collaborative writer, also known as a ghostwriter. I don't have a problem admitting that. I'm not worried about being judged, but I am worried about like, is this really going to be my book? That's stretching me, right? And so all of these things right now are stretching me in a way that I've never been stretched before. And I'm like, the cost of the writer, the cost of publishing the book, the cost of my research, the cost to train, to transition my business in certain ways, the cost keeps adding up if you keep hearing me talk about that. And I have this concern that what if this doesn't work out? What if
Mm.
I don't win on the other side? And that just stretches me. And then I lean in and go, well, what's the worst that could happen, man? I literally go back to that 10-meter diving board at USAFA and I think about what's the worst that could happen. I am afraid of heights. I'm afraid to jump. And I know that if I jump right now, I could end up killing myself. And I am afraid that I could end up jumping and busting my face wide open. I'm afraid that I could put all of this money, all of this time, all of this energy into these projects, and it all goes bust and it all fails. And then what? And then what is my family like? Am I going to be able to feed my family? Am I going to be able to continue towards my retirement goals? Am I going to continue to be able to impact the world the way I want to impact the world? All of these things play out in here, and I have to
Man.
control for that.
Okay, so what I heard you say, it's what we're gonna do for each other, right? Because we're gonna take these lessons for each other. All right. So
Yes.
what I heard you say is, um, your mojo was at home, right? But you wanted to go and hang out with other people's mojo. So you started hanging out with everybody else's mojo. And in the meantime, things ain't working like they were working when you was using your mojo. So now you came back to your mojo. And while you're back with your mojo, you telling stories to your mojo. You're imagining the worst
Mm-hmm.
with your mojo. Because even when you said like, what if I can't, what if it doesn't work? What if it is like that's the part where we were talking about earlier about using our imagination, this gift that we have to create to serve us, to give us the things that we don't want versus to serve us to give us the things that we do want. Right. And that's what you were like. So I went to hang out with other people's mojo. And then I came back and I started telling imagining with my mojo, hey, what if your mojo don't work no more? And then even to get out of that scenario, which I think is a good step, it's an interim step. You said, I started to think, what's the worst that could happen? And it's like, and so now you used your imagination to come up with what's the worst that could happen. And it gave you a little bit of, well, that's not so bad. So then it could still work out. Rather than, the thing that we're all growing and learning to do. This is the thing where this is when we get to the root cause of what are we really uncomfortable with? What are we really struggling with? And that is getting our mind in control and remembering that we are limitless in our capacity and could do whatever it is we dream or imagine we could do. And so reframing and reprogramming our imagination to give us the things that we want and to create the world or the environment that we want to live in. And so that's my gift to myself. To myself on what you just said. So I'll talk about the same thing. Like, what am I
Please, yes.
struggling with? What am I uncomfortable with? Um, so right now, so in this new world of just let go and things are going to work out or what have you, I don't have the same kinds of guarantees, where if I hit this lever, this cookie's going to come out. And so, like, I am in a space right now where I've recognized all of the moments up until now where I've pushed off my dreams,
Mm.
where I've done things in the interim because I thought those were the responsible things that I needed to do on my way to my, like when I get this done, then I could go and chase my dream. And then, but here's the thing, those things that you have to do never go away. So I was like, I finally hit the point where I was like, I'm never, if I keep doing it this way, I'm just going to be back in another business doing the same things that they give me success to other people. They give me access to what I would call easy money, but it's like I'm not fulfilled and I know it's out of alignment. And so right now I'm going down a pathway where I'm like, I really want to be in media, movies, entertainment, but I want to do uplifting content. And I really want to, like do things that are in alignment with my gifts. Like I love music. I play and I make music. I like to tell stories and I want to build a life around that. But wait a second, like that's not as easy as putting together for real for me. That's not as easy as, putting together another government services firm and going after some more federal contracts. And so I'm the thing I'm very uncomfortable with is starting from zero, chasing dreams and like keeping my spirit and my mind focused such that my imagination doesn't drive me to ruin, because it is a daily battle remembering to convince myself that it's more likely to work out than not, and that I've been given every gift to be able to make it work. And now I even understand how to run the business of the creative projects. And so that's what I've been struggling with. And it's the same thing, man. It's like I've run through those same scenarios. I've dealt with the insomnia, staying up late at night, imagining a future where, my life is in ruin. And it's like, it just takes a few moments of meditation for me to stop and remember, wait, what are you thinking about? Why are you thinking that? That's not true. None of it is true. None of it. All of this stuff we're making up anyway.
Yeah.
Like even the work I just did, I made it up. I never set out to do that. I made it up. I made those companies success. I imagined what success was going to look like. I imagined my daily practice. I imagined moving up in the world and learning how to be a CEO and a CFO and a this and a that. I had to imagine what life was going to be like to do those things. And I'm going to start to imagine in the same way for the things that I want here. Make my imagination serve me to the point that it's driving me towards the things that I want versus away from them.
Bruh, I love that. And what's amazing is you already gave yourself a message before you even told me that part of the story, right? And I think what's amazing is to what you were saying is like this idea that you've learned how to make the impossible possible. So many people, they don't even know how to make the impossible possible. They don't even know how to dream, and they don't even know how to imagine a world that's different than their current reality. You not only know how to do that, you know how to make that become a reality, right? Which is
Mm,
amazing. And so
unless
when you do that, that's just beautiful, right? Like you've learned how to make that reality come true. Most people don't know how to do that. And so in doing that, you have proven what's possible. Now that you've proven what's possible, now you got to go back to the drawing board. And as you talked about earlier, you have to disassociate yourself with all of these other things that have happened leading up to where you're at now. And as you disassociate yourself from that, you have to, it's like that iceberg example, right? You got the iceberg up here and then you got everything below the surface. Right now, you're playing with all these things below the surface. And the things that are below the surface are the things that are our lived experiences. It's those things that contribute to our unconscious biases, right? It's from our lived experiences. It's from what we ingest, what we listen to, what we watch, what we see, what we hear, what people are saying, right? Oh, you can't do that because you're not so and so. You can't do that because you're not in this world. You can't do that because you're. All of these things begin to weigh you down. They become that piece that's below the surface on that iceberg. And if you dial into that and you start believing in that stuff, then what's going to end up happening is you're going to allow that to overcome you and overwhelm you and prevent you from being the best version of who you're meant to be and prevent you from accomplishing what you're setting out to accomplish. So as you're thinking through this stuff, learn how to, as we've talked about before, right? Control your inputs. And as you control
Yeah.
those inputs, and not only controlling the inputs, but also control, as you control the inputs, control who you allow around you to give you feedback. Because some people's feedback is a projection on who they see themselves as and what you're attempting to do. But they don't know how to make the impossible possible because they've never done it before. And they don't know how to dream and they don't know how to use and leverage their imagination. So they can't even fathom and they can't even comprehend what you are capable of. And so, therefore, when you begin to share what you're capable of and you begin to share what you think is possible, they say there's no way that's impossible. It can't be done.
Mm.
Meanwhile, you just look at them and say, watch me. Watch me go to work. And that's where that's the space that we have to stay in right now. Watch me go to work. I know you say that it's impossible to be a media mogul because I don't have XYZ, but I'm not worried about that. I know you say that it's impossible to be a first-time book writer, author, and become a New York Times bestselling author. Watch me
Mm.
go to work. I
Get it.
know you don't think it's possible for me to walk away from this job for whatever reason or whatever the case might be. But just watch me go to work. Watch me show you what's possible. And oh, by the way, I'm not doing it to flex. I'm not doing it to prove anything to you. I am doing it for me. And as I do it for me, others will see what's possible. And I will get joy, gratitude, and fulfillment by allowing my presence to be my activism and allowing my mind to flow freely and allowing my being to become what it's meant to be to continue learning on this journey called life. That's what this is about.
Captain. Land the plane, brother.
Look,
That
man.
was a good smooth landing.
Look, man. We've
Hey,
had a
thank you, man.
phenomenal conversation, man. Thank you so much for joining me today on another cockpit conversation. Again, this is
My
where we have
pleasure.
conversations as though we were sitting in the cockpit of an airplane, getting to know each other, learning our stories, learning what makes us tick, and learning how to make each other better. Tune in for the next opportunity for us to have another conversation. And shoot us your questions. We'd love to interact and talk about questions that you might have. And where can they find you at, Rashad, in case they want to reach out to you and connect with you?
At Rashad Howard _com on Instagram. And I got a YouTube page. I think I got 10 subscribers so far. So, hey, at
Let's
Rashad at youtube.com, at Rashad Howard, you'll find me.
let's go, man. Thanks again. You guys have a wonderful week. Blue skies, fair winds, and all the best.
All right, my man. That was good.